I am so glad that you're here this evening to talk about what has already been mentioned. But there are a lot of things that you don't just run through your mind when you're talking about water. It's good to drink. Good to drink. And there's not enough of it this time of the year unless you live up to Nanny in Jersey Village. According to the weather news, just before we left the house, they were having 200 lightning strikes per 10 minutes up there. So be glad you're down here where it's nice. This program that I'm going to present to you this evening is one that I've kind of accumulated over the years. After you've grown roses for a while and had a few mistakes come up, you begin to file those away and come up with solutions for those mistakes. And that builds your background. That allows you then someday maybe become an American Rose Society consulting rosarian so that you can share that horticultural wealth with other people. We're going to talk a little bit about that this evening. Now, the 500 roses, I'm going to give a talk here in a couple of weeks in Wisconsin on things I wish I had learned sooner. And one of those things is never plant more roses than your spouse can successfully tend. And if I would turn this on by squeezing that button, it would work a lot better. Here's the Texas rain gauge. I don't know whether that's Miller Lite or Bud or what, but at any rate, you get the picture. Let's talk about water and the way that we see water. I covered you up over there. Rainwater. Rainwater doesn't contain the purification chemicals put into tap water to make it drinkable. It contains instead pollutants that were washed out of the air. You didn't want to think that thought because it's ecologically sort of distasteful. Well, let me tell you, that's what's out there. Because if you'll drive through the city and then come in after the rain shower, you'll be able to see a long distance where you couldn't see it before. My lovely wife collected for years rainwater. There are people that collect rainwater. They got tanks and everything. And that's no different than the other, except the others have got some purification things in it. There's groundwater, which bubbles up, you know. There's tap water, you and I have this turn faucet that comes out. There's hail, that's water. It's just kind of hard water, if you know what I mean. Along with sleet and ice and glaciers, that's really hard, it's really big, and snow. You and I don't see very much of those last few kind down here. Patsy and I have a daughter, her family live in Switzerland, so we get to see some of that once in a great while. There's a storm surge. Oh boy, we saw some of that here a year ago, didn't we? Tsunamis, sweat and tears.
I know those, especially the sweat.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You go out and you work in your yard, you come in at 10 o'clock, and you pull all your wet clothes off, put dry ones on, stick the wet ones out in the sunshine so you can wear them again from 6 to 8. H2O, hydrogen hydroxide, HOH. Steam. Steam is water. It's just really, really hot water. It's so hot that it can't stick together. No, I'm serious about that. The molecules are so hot that they are bouncing like this, and they bounce so hard they can't stick together. And that's a fact. Your physics friends will tell you something. Clouds are like that too. They're just at so low density, once in a while they'll stick together because of electric charges and form a nice cloud, and then here comes some raindrops. Dew. God puts dew on the roses every morning.
Yep.
Just about every morning. That old business about can't water at night because getting them wet will cause you a problem. We're going to talk about that again. Condensate, which essentially is dew. That's because when you're looking at an open sky up there, that sky a little further up is minus 283 degrees. And that's what cools off the top of the grass layers and the leaves, and then the dew forms when it hits those really cold surfaces. There are a lot of forms of water. But here are the ones that we see. We see ice, there's some in that picture over there. We see liquid, there's water around that. And we see vapor in the form of steams and clouds. And so what do we use it for? Well, we drink a lot of it, that's good. We cook a lot of it, that's good. We bathe, that's even better. We wash our clothes in our vehicles, and we use it as a solvent. At a very early age, a science teacher told me that the universal solvent is water. It will put stuff into solution more than anything else that's out there. And that's a fact. We use it to dilute things. When you buy the chemicals that you use perhaps on your roses, you buy them in concentrated form. You must then dilute them so they won't just turn your plants to a crisp. And of course, watering our roses. That's the main topic for this evening. A great percentage of the plant is water. And if I understood it right, it's like up around 80%, almost 80% of the plant is actually water. If you weigh it, you know. And I think that's remarkable. We have to think about that when we're thinking about the plant. Food comes into the plant through its roots, and it's carried in by osmosis. Now, I put the little thing there. They migrate into the cell walls by osmosis. During osmosis, liquids move from a wetter region to a drier one. So the soil has to be wetter than the roots. I like to say, just to poke people's minds, that the rose has to be drier than the soil. Just to cause them to think, what did he say? He said the soil has to be wetter than the roots, which means you gotta have enough water on your rose beds. Moisture evaporates from underneath the leaflets. Back there, if you could turn one of those leaflets upside down and look at it with a real good microscope, you'd see big holes. Those holes are called stomata. They open up and let the plant breathe. It gives off oxygen, takes in nitrogen in a form, keeps the plant cool. But in the process of doing that, it forms a negative pressure in that little petiole that goes down to the stem and into the stem. The stem inside the plant is actually at a negative pressure. I want you to understand that. When you cut the stem, it sucks an air bubble into it. That's why the rosarians will tell you, when you go out and you cut a stem off of your rose, you stick it under water and you cut it again. And the process of doing that, you cut out the air bubble. And if you don't, then later in the afternoon, it's going to look like this. So learn that and understand that there's a negative pressure inside those stems.
Baxter, do you do that in the garden, or do you bring them in and do
You
it?
take a bucket out there, 2/3 full of water, cut the stem, stick it into the bucket with the water in it, and cut it again. Underwater.
I do that in
Get
the
your old
house.
felt coat wet. They ain't gonna rust.
I do that in the house. I've never done it out in the garden.
Well, you can do it. You just have to cut up a longer piece.
Okay.
Because that air bubble, when you make the cut, moisture keeps flowing out of that cut stem.
So the quicker the better.
Yeah. Well, yes. Depends upon the length of the stem. I mean, if you got a really long stem, you know, cut pieces of it for another week or something. But it will suck an air bubble up in there, and it will keep on sucking air up in there because moisture is going out of the bottom of those leaflets all of the time after it's been cut. And Mary and all of us who have cut roses for show realizes that once you make a stem cut, nothing much stops. You'd like to cut one and just have it stay right the way it was when you cut it. The problem with that is it just keeps opening. And so you cut it one day, and the next day you get ready to take it to the show, and you take it out of the refrigerator and look at it and see the thing has come open. You didn't want it to come open. You learn to cut them nearer the bud stage. So if after you've grown that rose for a while, you realize how that variety opens after you cut it. Some of them take a long time to open. Some of them open pretty fast. The ones with the fewer petals open the fastest. Now, let's assume a well-grown, fully foliaged hybrid tea rose. If you've got some of those, they are this big around and this tall. This week, right now. Oh, you have hybrid teas that aren't this tall, that aren't this big around. You need to be talking. Maybe need farm dirt. Maybe you need more water. Maybe you need some nitro-phos rose fertilizer. But here is the key of it. A fully grown rose bush like this will aspirate 5 gallons a week. The growing space is about 3 feet by 3 feet. And so 5 gallons will work out to almost 1 inch of water per week. I am totally in love with God, but sometimes He doesn't send me an inch a week. I have to supplement that. And so we're going to be talking about some of those things, you know. Here's one way to do it. Hook a little valve on the end of the hose. You get a watering wand and you hold it over there and you turn it on and you let it run. Think about how much is coming out. By the way, coming out that hose right there, it's about 2 gallons a minute if you just turn it on and let it flow. So think about how long you have to stand beside that rose with that water coming out right there to give it how much water it needs since you watered it last. Okay? You know, it all boils down to physics. Somewhere in there it boils down to physics. Okay, how to apply? Well, they're the whirligig kinds, you know, you put them on, you got 3 little things sticking out there and they go, just spray water in all directions. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Oscillating, the kind that go over and back and over and back, are the impulse sprinklers that that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Leaky pipe. Folks, be careful of the leaky pipes. Sometimes they don't leak enough. Sometimes they'll get plugged up. And the only way you're going to know it is when the rose dies. So look out for leaky pipes. and little tubes that run off to somewhere. Pipe with emitters, inline or in circuit. You can buy these little emitters at a tube that you squeeze on the pipe, and it pokes the emitter in through the plastic pipe. I'm not talking about the white PVC pipe now, I'm talking about that black flexible stuff. And it'll poke an emitter in there, and there's a little spigot on the side, and so you can slip an 1/8" tube and run it over to where your rose is. By the way, if the tube is right here, you're going to get a little bit larger and a little bit larger and a little bit larger. Remember, this thing is this wide, and you're going to get a spot this big at the end of that tube. What I'm trying to tell you is that if you use emitters with the little drip tubes all over the place, you need more than one. The people that use them effectively run the little quarter tube out, put a T in it, and then run a circle around the rose and hook it back into the T. And they have little holes in that pipe all the way around. Pipes with sprinklers, quick disconnect, hard pipe, solenoid valves with a timer. This is what Patsy and I use in almost all of our beds. We have a 1/2" pipe that runs down the middle of the bed, and we have a spray nozzle every 30 inches. And that works pretty good. It would work even better if we turned it on and left it on more during August heat. We're running at 10 minutes per zone now, and I told her yesterday that I thought we needed to run it 20 minutes per zone. I hadn't set the time.
Baxter, what's your frequency on that? How many? Is that every day?
Yeah, that's every day. Remember, you're trying to get 0.89 inches into the root systems. You put water on the top, some of it's going to evaporate away. It's not all going down to the roots. And what always fascinates me is we can go out there manually and turn it on so water is coming out the spray nozzles and let it run for 10 minutes and go out there with a rake or a shovel and it's gone down this far. What I'm telling you is the bed has to be saturated. It can't be just the top 1/2 inch. That's not going to make your rose a pretty rose like you're hoping for. So here is that hose with the little widgets, little nozzles stuck ever so often. Those are called Dram nozzles, D-R-A-M-M. And I put them on a PVC pipe. I drill a hole. I seem to remember it's 7/16, just shy of 1/2 inch. And you get a little rubber grommet seat that sticks down into the hole, and then you stick the little nozzle in and you twist it into there because it's got a tapered thread. And the further you run it down, the more it swells out and captures itself in the pipe. Now I'll tell you my little story. We needed a bed. It needed to be a special bed. We have a special bed in our backyard. It's called a figure 8 bed. You know? And I sat down for 2 nights in my easy chair with a clipboard and a calculator in my hand. And I figured out just how long each piece of landscape timber had to be, and how it had to be cut on the end and whatnot to make this figure 8 bed. I had to have enough space in the middle so you don't get claustrophobic or get cut up while you're running the lawnmower in there. And then the bed had to be 5 feet, you know, and then the hole, and then another 5 feet. And at the end of those 2 nights, I happened to look at the long side of the timber and found out that it was 9 feet 6 and some odd inches. You can't buy a 9-foot timber. They only come 8. Oh, shucks. I had a 90-degree cross. Each angle was 45, you know. So I had to sit down for 2 more nights and calculate it using a 30-degree angle, so that the piece on the timber then came out 7 feet 10 3/4. I had 1 1/4 inch left over. Oh, I was so happy. Oh yeah, we built that bed. And then we're going to run a pipe like this down the middle of that bed. It's essentially, it's 2 C's with an X in the middle. Going to run the pipe down the middle of the bed. And let me tell you something else. You can't buy a 30-degree PVC. I only paid 45. And so here I am, you know, how do I make the angle on the pipe? Okay, you guys, you thinking about this? You thinking about how you did this? Tell you how Townsend did it that same way that I did. He goes out to the barbecue pit and he heats up the piece of pipe and he bends it to 30 degrees. But Townsend's been smarter than I was. He would have bent it to 30 degrees and then drilled all the little holes in there so they wouldn't look like this. Oh, me. Okay. Oh, I got back up. You see this little thing right here? If you're going to run a straight pipe down your bed, you got to have something to keep everything vertical. So you put a little 6-inch piece down here in it with a cap on the end, and you just jam it down into the ground. That way it can't turn. Kidneys. Here is what eventually happened, because if you do it this way, your spouse has to go out there and move this thing every 20 minutes.
That's no good.
That's no good. So you can hard pipe it in, but guess what? Then your spouse has to go out there and turn that valve every 20 minutes. So then you get smart. It costs a little more, but you put a solenoid valve in there. And you let the controller tell the solenoid valve when to come on and run for 20 minutes. Now, our solenoid valves start coming on at 3 a.m. Oh, you get your leaves all wet and you get a fungus. Not if you spray protect. Spray protect. Not if you put a fungicide on your bushes. It doesn't make any difference when you water your rose bushes if you have spray protected them. You can run it all night long. You can run it in the middle of the day. But here's a solenoid valve. These things only cost about 15 bucks a piece, something like that. I'm going to back up a notch here and show you this right here. Here's a piece of pipe, and here's a thread connection that goes into that valve, which has threaded connections. And then there's a little all-thread piece, and then there's a union, and then there's this piece. Now this piece right here you can take apart. I have learned
Which piece can you take apart?
This union right here.
Okay.
You can unscrew this big piece right here, and the piece is separated. So if you need to get in there and work on the pipe, you can separate them right there. Let me tell you something else too. When we started doing this, there were brass valves, and those little pieces right there were galvanized steel, and they rusted like crazy. The unions were galvanized steel too. Folks, buy the plastic ones. I'm telling you, buy the plastic ones. You can unscrew them and screw them by hand. You don't even need a wrench with the plastic. The plastic valves, the plastic unions, all apart. Use it all plastic. That's the quick, smart, less trouble way to do it. Now here's the way that we build our beds. There's one exception here. You see the end right here? I actually made this end come to right here and then ran it from here that way. In other words, I have 3 pieces on the end that are the same length, and they are 1 timber width difference in length. What I did, I wrote an article called A Quick 12 rows bed. And in that 12 rows bed, I used 18 landscape timbers and 36 nails. The 18 landscape timbers were 3 here and 3 here, that's 6. 3 over there and 3 over there, that's 6 more, that's 12. 3 right here, 3 right there, another 6, that's 18. And in each one of the joints right here, they are put together like this. Stand up here. They're put together like this, and the corners, they're just like that. And what I did was I drilled a 1/4-inch hole in this one and drove a 60-penny galvanized nail, it's like a gutter spike, into the one below. And then I did it here, and then I did it here. And I put the next layer, 3 more nails. So what it takes is 18 landscape timbers and 6 nails at each joint. So it's 18 timbers and 36 nails. And I claimed in my article, which I'll be glad to send to you if you want to, that you could build that rose bed in 1 hour and plant it in the 2nd hour. But I lied, it takes a half a day. I mean, the timbers are on the wrong side of the yard, it's not quite level. You don't have a 1/4-inch long drill, you have to go to the store and buy one. Where's that extension cord when you need it? You know, there's a lot of other things on it. But you can do it in a half a day. You can do it in a morning. You could build a bed 16 feet long and almost 6 feet. Now, how to apply? Sprinklers, Dram nozzles. The Dram nozzles put out a 360-degree flat spray. And that's ideal. It doesn't spray up, you know. It would be all right if it did, but it sprays out, gets all watered down low. You can get segmental coverage if you buy these little nozzles that put out 180 degrees or 90 degrees or 270 degrees, you know, the ones that go on the end of the pipe. You can buy pop-ups. You've seen those, I'm sure, maybe on the golf course or people's yards, where the sprinkler comes on and the little thing pops up out of the ground and goes, you know, and sprays around, and it disappears in the ground. The impulse type, whoop, too far. The impulse type, which, and by the way, for years, they watered all the roses that were in this garden using impulse sprayers. They had them up about this high on like a one inch pipe. And they would bring it out and screw it in the ground and block everything off so the people walking through wouldn't get wet, and turn those things on, and they could spray 100 feet in any direction. And it would just run for an hour or something like that, 2 hours, and then they'd stop it and move it and do it again. There are I keep pushing the wrong button. There are micro nozzles that come up, they're about a 1/4 inch in diameter, but they put out a little fine sort of a misting spray. They're nice if you want to water something small and don't want it to be so obvious. And then, of course, the drip systems. Now, more and more I'm fascinated by drip systems. And so the next thing that you see that I keep jumping to is a drip system. This is called netafim, N-E-T-A-F-I-M. The tubes that you see right here ever so often have a built-in drip nozzle. They're built into the tube. And I'm told they don't plug up. I don't know, it sounded good to me that they said the way it's designed, it can't plug, that'd be fine, or maybe you can back flush it or something like that. But ever so often, and you can buy it with every 12 inches, every 18 inches, every 24 inches, and it comes in a roll that looks like that. And you don't see it, but ever so often around that coil right there, there is a nozzle inside the pipe that drips out. And that wets things just really beautiful. These netafim systems are used in large agriculture where they have a road that's a half a mile long and they need to water it, and they don't want to flood the field, waste all the water there. They dig a trench and put the netafim down in the trench and attach it then to a solenoid valve and with filters and things like that up at the supply end, and cap it at the far end down there, or put a plug in it so they can open the plug and flush the line out. And they turn it on, and then all the water goes down the row where the roots are. Not up here on the top, but down where the roots are. And so I think it was invented in Israel, if my memory serves me correct. I seem to remember hearing, what was his name? The one KTRH.
Randy Lemon?
No, way before him.
Zach.
Huh?
Bill Zach.
No, before him.
Julie
Billy Compton, yeah. Billy Compton told about that. And as a matter of fact, he got on an airplane, flew over here to see it. So, now, look, see what it does? Here it's been pegged down and the water turned on. This is just an area drain right here. The water turned on, but do you see how it makes a wet spot?
Is that the netafim?
That's netafim, under pressure.
Huh.
And so, if you can think of a row of rose bushes, or 2 rows of rose bushes, and run one of these down one side of the bush and another one down another side of the bush and another down another side of that other bush, you see what I'm getting at? Or maybe even do this. You'd have to take a little pin-shaped thing and pin it down so it doesn't move around.
It's underground, it wouldn't have to be.
Wouldn't have to be. That's right. But you can probably see the little pin right there holding it in. Now, if fungus prevention is applied anytime, you can water. That's what I made the comment about a few minutes ago. If you have spray protected your roses, you can water them day or night. And I'm gonna mention that same thing I've mentioned several times before. That old business about don't spray water on top of the leaves during the heat of the day because the droplets form a magnifying glass and burns holes. What a crock! If you take a magnifying glass that's the size of a pencil eraser and lay it on the leaf and shine the sun on it, it'll concentrate it just enough, and the leaf will say, "Oh, that feels so good. I hope it does that every day." Okay, 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 2 a.m., plenty of water pressure at that time. The wind is seldom blowing. and there's certainly no radiant heat that's causing evaporation. Excellent time to water your rose. If, however, no fungicides are used, better go with the 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. sort of thing. A single 1-inch water line is way cheaper than separate 1-inch lines to each bed. If I had to feed off to various beds, I'd run one big 1-inch line and then 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch over to each bed, maybe put solenoid valves there. And by the way, guys, if you want to do that and maybe hire it done or something like that, running the wires to those solenoid valves is so cheap. You go to the Lowe's and you buy yourself a $20 500-foot roll of telephone wire, the kind you run around the base from room to room, and you use that to connect up your solenoid valve. And let's say there are 3 solenoid valves that you want to run out there. You buy one 4-wire cable, and you use this as the ground, and here's one solenoid valve, here's one solenoid valve, there's one solenoid valve. So from here to ground, from here to ground, from here to ground. It is just so easy to do. Good pH is 6 or 7. Better pH is 6.5. Bet you don't know what yours is. Some of you have pH meters. You got 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 around the room. Go get a pH meter. They don't cost very much. You stuff them down in the ground, get down where the roots are, and see what the pH is down there. Because if the pH is not right, the rose bush can't, by osmosis, pick up the nutrients it needs. A leaky pipe left on will rot the roots. There's one of those caveats with respect to leaky pipes. But a dead bush is sometimes the first indication that a drip emitter on or a leaky pipe is plugged. So just be aware. A gallon of water left in the rinsed sprayer tank won't let residual wettable powder turn to stone. Those of us who sprayed our roses with mancozeb and other powdered forms know you don't ever let the tank dry out. You always leave a little ullage in the bottom so things like that don't happen. You notice I picked up a term there, ullage. Not very many people know ullage. You never really know if a hose-in sprayer is effective because you're never really sure about how much water is coming out. You know what I'm talking about. It's that little jar, you screw it on the end and you put stuff in the jar and then you hold it over here. Lord have mercy, talk about wasting product. Don't do that. If you have one of those, give it to a neighbor you don't like. And if you didn't get wet and you didn't knock enough spider mites off. We're talking about spider mites a little bit ago. There's a widget that you can buy. By the way, I've got 2 or 3 or 4 of those things if you want to buy one from me someday. It's a pipe with a spray nozzle on the end, and you run it under back and forth of the bush, and you do it every other day for a week, and it'll knock the spider mites off. They have to be on the bush to reproduce, and you knock them off the bush, and it takes a while for them to find the bush and crawl back up, and you knock them off again. Like I say, you do that every other day for a week. That'd be about 4 times. You will have screwed up their sex life so bad they can't reestablish a colony. Talk to your roses. It does you good. I tell you sometimes by saying I like to go out early in the morning. Patsy knows I never go out early in the morning. Go out early in the morning, you know, with a cup of coffee. We'll drink coffee. And right up close to the rose bush and say, "Grow, you son of a gun, or I'm going to rip you out of the ground." You can almost hear them squeak. They grow it so fast. Do you have any questions?
I do have one.
Oh, Yes, sir.
In your use of, for example, drip systems, what is your thoughts about siphon feeding of fertilizer?
You know, I've heard that argued back and forth several times about why can't you just put the fertilizer in the water pipe? Since you're spraying water on the roses right there, go ahead and put it in the pipe. And the negative I've heard of is that inside the pipe, probably when it's not flowing, after you've done it and it stops, algae will build up in the pipe and then plug up the nozzles. And so I don't feed through the watering system. I just didn't want to end up with a pipe that had a bunch of algae in it. And my pipes are on top of the mulch. So
Okay, well, I'm
it's warm.
using the wire, the netafilm and the other.
So you're in the
subsurface, and tried it this year so far. I really have been doing well, but I was
Excellent.
afraid of something like you just suggested that I was unaware of, an algae buildup.
Yeah. Well, I've not done it, and so I can't really for sure comment on it. And the only comment that I really heard was negative until you told me just now that yours is working just fine. Glad to hear it, because now I've got two things I can say. Yes, sir. You have another question or
No,
point?
that's it.
Okay.
Well,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like for you to put that on our website because that's way too complicated. I'm sorry, but I was looking over there to make sure my husband was here because I was thinking, I couldn't even remember all that stuff, much less do it.
I agree.
I didn't
So
want
would
to
you
talk
put it on
too
the
fast.
website?
No, let me come back another time, schedule me for 2 hours, and I'll talk very slow. We'll see if we can do something like that. It's not copyrighted material, but, and I guess I don't mind if somebody were to take it and go present a program that doesn't have me presenting it, but certain pride of owners, ownership there with that. But, okay. Thanks for the suggestion. Yes. Another question? Oh, excuse me, Lee.
Yeah, putting fertilizer or anything else in your pipes is about the same as putting cheese or something like that into your arteries. It's plaque, it's a buildup, and it's
Over
going to
time.
shut off either the valves or shut off the pump.
Yeah, sometimes things can go on through, but sometimes they won't. If you've ever left a milk jug full of water that you use it for watering potted plants outside, you'll find out that you get this green stuff in the bottom of it. And that's algae. By the way, I hate to tell you this, but that algae came out of the tap water that you drink. You can put the Brita filter on it if you want to, and maybe you'll get some of it out, but who cares? I've been drinking algae for 70, 80 years now.
A better way to feed liquid, to make it easier than filling individual gallons of water and going and pouring it on, which I think is what you would want to be trying to avoid there.
That's correct.
A better way to do that is to get your 30-gallon garbage trash can, plastic, and fill it with water. And when we've done this, we've had so many that we had to have 9 of these placed around the garden years ago. And use a sump pump and a hose, mix up your fertilizer in that 30-gallon tank, and however many roses you have, put a sump pump and the hose with a rainbird, and you go along, and you get into kind of a rhythm of how long it takes for each bush to put a gallon on it and go around like that.
That would certainly work. One of the things I will respond to his question about the clogging it up like plaque. The Houston Rose Society puts out fertilizer which it claims to be fully water soluble.
Yes.
If it is, then it isn't going to build up anything.
I've never used any water soluble that doesn't leave something in the bottom of the tank.
Something, but
In the tank, yes, okay.
But I'm more concerned about the algae, the plant growth.
Yeah, I understand that, that is a concern. I
Because
had
it'll
not
plug up
considered
your
that.
middle nozzles.
We'll find out at the end of this year, but I'll cut a few and see what it looks like.
Thanks for your
All
attention.
right.